Oh, that was
right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jess. They are Nori. She is Zoe. She is Janet. She is Mariette. And we are 5 out of 6 of the novel bunch. Grace was going to be here today, but unfortunately she can't be, personal reasons. I'll fill everybody in the club at some point. But yes, we are all here finally to discuss our April book club pick, which was Nori's pick, the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I've already put in the in the description down below all of the trigger warnings that Nori gave us for this book.
So many.
One more time, I will say, if you are under the age of 18, please get parental consent before you either read this or watch our video, because we are going to be discussing some very dark stuff. And I don't want people to go through this and be triggered or be underage. We are not responsible for what you consume content-wise. So just exercise a little bit of common sense. This is a horror book. Yeah, this is a horror book, and it is. I'm very jealous of the dust jacket removal there.
Has a little thing on it that says, like, Town of Mount Pleasant Public Library, which is
cool.
the fictional town in the thing.
No, it's a real place.
Is it? Ooh.
The old village is
It's
real.
a real
It's
place.
where Grady
It's where
Hendrix lived. Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway,
I wonder if it feels so real.
Before we get into the spoiler-free zone, I am going to just mention that we are currently reading our May pick, which is Mariette's pick. We've got a comment from Chloe, and she said, "I think there's an echo."
Oh man, it's not me. It can't be
We
me.
haven't. I was going to say we haven't got one on our end, but I apologise if there is one. We've all combated it with headphones. So
we will try.
We apologize. Before we get into the discussion, I have put in the description down below. I can just about hear it. I can hear myself echoing. I am really sorry. Yes, where was I? Our picks for May, June, and July have been chosen. So May is Mariette's book, which Zoe is so lovely presenting for us.
Mine is underneath this chair.
Mine's on the other side of this wall, literally like right there.
Mine
right through the wall.
No,
Go
that's
get
a
it.
bag.
Yeah.
I can't reach it. That side.
Mine is in my work bag
yeah.
in my room. Anyway, we are reading The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern in the month of March. That is our pick for that month. In June, we are reading Grace is Gone by Emily Elgar. Apparently it's true crime. That is Grace's pick. And then our July pick is my second pick of the year, and that is Loveless by Alice Oseman, because we stan asexual, aromantic rep in books, and I am on a mission to make all of these guys read Alice Oseman. So,
which I would grab, but it's over on my other bookshelf over there.
What was that, Zoe?
I'm up to date on Heartstopper.
Drama.
I think I am. Maybe not the most recent one. I kind of noticed that it seems to be like the 11th of the month, and then there's like another day in the month when she uploads.
11th. It's on the 1st, the 11th, and the 21st that she uploads.
Okay, so I think I haven't read the 11th of May, but I'm also like, if I like just don't read it for a while and then read it, then there's like more to enjoy.
Yeah, that's one.
Like 2 clicks. Yeah.
Fair dues.
I'm going to be reading the 4 current volumes that are published in book form in June.
Yeah, if anyone fancies getting me an early Christmas present, it'd be nice to have
anyway. Shall we get into this month's pick? Oh, we lost Mariette. Oh no.
They really don't want us to discuss this book. Mariette says no.
Joy on there.
Oh dear. She'll be back in a minute.
I almost feel like it's I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing that it's been so long, like this discussion has been in the making, because like it's probably a good thing, because I'm not just going to ramble all my thoughts in one go, but at the same time they're all going to come back to me slowly, so I'm like, is that better or worse? I don't know. Probably better.
I only have 10 questions and I have left much room for rambles.
Much room. I love that. Oh my goodness. So yeah, Mariette's laptop isn't working, so she's going to join us via phone. She'll be back in a minute. So we'll wait to give our thoughts on Southern Book Club until she's here. But what is everybody currently reading at the moment? I'm reading Starless Sea, but I'm also reading a thriller called Bite by Nick Luth. It's like, yeah, it's difficult to explain what that is. But currently it's sitting at a 3-star and I'm only 30 pages in. The way this guy writes women is just...
Don't say anymore.
Yeah. Nori, what about you?
I am currently reading Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. I have read the preface and the first chapter today.
Amazing.
I'm proud of. The first chapter was very big. It made me like, my emotions are not ready, but I'm going to still read it because I'm going to. And then after that, I'm going to be reading Before the Coffee Gets Cold, because it's my brother's birthday soon, and I think he would enjoy both of those books. So I want to read them first before I get them. Don't tell him. He's probably not watching.
I've just lent my nan my copy of Before the Coffee Gets Cold, so I'm looking forward to see what she thinks as well. By the way, for the live chat, Mama and Nana are here.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
So yeah, Janet, what are you reading right now?
So I'm reading a book called Disclaimer by Renee Knight. It's a thriller, I think. I say I think because I don't read thrillers on a regular basis. They're not my go-to choice of genre. But also because I'm not that thrilled so far. Like I've got about 100 pages left and I want to just bash it out. But finding the motivation to read is a struggle. But the actual reading, like I can read quite a lot in one go. The chapters are quite short. It's kind of an easy writing style, you know, so it's a weird one. Like I'm like, I don't not enjoy it, but I don't love it. But like it's easy to read, so I should have finished it by now, but I haven't. But so it's okay. Just didn't like the beginning. And the middle. Don't know if I'm gonna like the end yet because I haven't reached it. But it's not bad. But I just I don't know. I'm in a few places with this book. I don't really know how I feel. So yeah, but I'll let you know whenever I finish it. So.
Fabulous. Zoe, what are you reading at the moment?
I'm reading The Starless Sea, which is our pick, but I have just finished this one called The Same Sky by Amanda Airward. This is one we picked up in Hemel Hempstead, Jess.
Oh, nice.
And it's, I think I gave it 3, or did I give it 4? No, I think I gave it 3.
I shall look on your Goodreads.
Yeah, have a look for me. It's good. It was like, it's quite harrowing. It's about, it's kind of 2 stories side by side, but they're connected, but not until the end. And it's basically one of the stories is about a 12-year-old. And she has to she wants to kind of cross the border to America to be with her mom, with her little brother, who's addicted to smelling glue, and and it's all about kind of like immigrants, like immigrant children trying to cross the border and trafficking. It's quite harrowing, and some really, really tough stuff happens in it. Just if anyone wants to read it, there's a lot of triggers in there, like child rape and things like that.
Oh,
just
fun.
FYI. And then the parallel story is a couple who are quite like affluent and things, but they have struggles with fertility, and it's good.
Cool.
But it's quite harrowing.
Yeah. Mariette, what are you reading at the moment?
I've just put down, but I'm rereading Starless Sea to make sure I remember what happens and everything. So I'm 140 something pages into that at the moment, but I just finished a book called Sweet Sweet Revenge Limited, which was a wild ride from start to finish. If you want to laugh, then I fully recommend it. Honestly, it's just such a wild ride, and you don't expect it to go. It's just a good laugh.
Oh dear. I'm still trying to find Zoe on
I could probably
Goodreads.
find
I
it
can't.
myself. I'll find it myself.
Yeah. So
I'm very
anyway,
excited for our Starless Sea discussion. I have thoughts, and I need everyone to finish the book now,
I
so
need
that
to
I can
start
discuss
it.
these thoughts.
I need to
You can
start
message me already, Nori. I have read it once. I'm just rereading it for memory purposes. So I'm willing to talk about it.
Yes, I have a little piece of paper with my thoughts written down. Similar to this piece of paper.
Amazing.
Not.
Amazing. Well, we have one person watching at the moment, and that is Chloe. And following on from what I was saying, oh, you gave it a 3-star.
It was 3. Yeah.
Fabulous. So we have Chloe watching in, and following on from what I was saying about Bite, men writing women is not the one. Yes. And then mentioning
/ men writing women.
And then before the coffee gets cold, yes. And apparently she is very ready for our Starless Sea discussion. But that will be coming next month, at the start of June. We will be doing our monthly quiz. It'll probably be in the next week or so. I will confirm that with Grace when she is free. And yeah, I have no idea what she's doing the questions on. That will be interesting. But then in June, it's my turn to host the quiz.
Oh,
so be prepared for that. I have not hosted a quiz yet.
No, you haven't, have you? I started it off.
Is it going to be a gay quiz?
That I could combine my two loves, gayness and the classical world. Because
from a scale of 1 to yas, queen, how gay are we talking?
Yas, queen.
Oh.
Because the Greeks were gay. Yeah. Anyway, we've been waffling for 11.5 minutes. Shall we talk about the book? Nori,
yes.
Over to you. Over to you, my darling.
Right, everybody, strap in or get off. We're gonna do this. Okay, so let's. I'm very excited. So let's start by going around the group and giving our general star rating and our general feeling towards the book. Who wants to go first?
Why don't you go first?
Okay, sorry, I'm really excited. I forgot how much I love this book. So if you couldn't tell, I gave it a 5 stars. But it was also like, I think I was saying to Jess, I can't remember did I message you when I finished it, being like, what the heck am I supposed to do now? Or something along those lines. But I was also like, I know if I give it enough thought, I'm going to think of all the not the bad things, but like the things that I would normally lower the rating for to a 4 stars, but just the initial like feeling, it just had that 5-star reaction from me. So I was like, no, I'm going to keep it as a 5-star. Is it a perfect 5-star? Maybe not, but it was great. I don't even know how to start. I don't know why I chose to go first. I was just really excited in the moment. Not going to lie. I thought it was great. I thought it was very well written. It was very like, I don't know, the characters were just great. Like, I don't know, I can't remember who I said this to. I remember saying to someone, maybe it was the group chat, but like, if a book makes me like physically angry to the point where I literally want to lob it across the room, then that's going to get at least a 4-star rating, if not a 5-star rating. And that did it. Like, yeah. I just wanted to scream, but like in a good way. Is there a good way of screaming? I don't know, but yeah, so
roller coasters.
I don't know. I'm very aware that it's a spoiler-free zone, so I'm trying to not like ramble too much for that reason. But I thought it was great. It was, yeah. There were some parts where I was like, "Oh, did not want to read about that." The rats.
Yeah.
It was great. I loved it. So good choice.
Yeah. Obviously, for me, it was a 5-star. This is a reread for me. I was reading the hardback version. I did have the paperback version, which is now belongs to Jeff. But the hardback, the only difference between the hardback and the paperback is, for some reason, the hardback has like 2 like grammatical errors in the same sort of sentence. So it must have been like looked through and the same sort of, both the same sentences, just something went whoop. But yeah, I love this book. I love the characters. I love Grady Hendrix's writing style. He's just, I've read 2 of his books, and they both have their choicest of moments.
Yeah.
If you could handle this one, I think you could also handle My Best Friend's Exorcism. If you found
I'm so excited to read that.
If this one had moments that were too dark for you or too sort of gruesome, there's just one scene in My Best Friend's Exorcism which tops this entire book for absolute pure horror.
I'm intrigued.
So But I love this book. I got it in hardback after I'd already gotten it in paperback, so you know that I love it. I've never done that for a book before.
Fair enough.
Amazing. Who wants to go next? I'll go if no one's volunteering.
You go.
I really enjoyed this. It's only the second horror book that I've ever read. The first one was The Woman in Black and was really disappointing to me. But I read this one and I couldn't put it down. I read it in about 8 days. I loved it. As you can see, I tabbed the ever-loving God out of it.
Oh my word.
I tried not to. And what did I end up doing? Almost. Yeah, it's not as bad as Legendborn, but it's nearly there.
Oh, yeah.
Also, it's a floppy paperback and we stan. But anyway, I gave this 4 stars. I really loved the characters and the character dynamics, especially within the book club.
Yeah.
I liked that they are all flawed in their own ways. I loved Slim. Loved her so much.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Slim? I actually really liked Slick. That's it.
Yeah.
I liked
Slim's
Patricia. Yes, that's what it got me confused with. I loved Patricia as a character, and I loved her family dynamic and how that arc changed. I loved the villain. I loved him. He's such a good villain, in my opinion. It is very dark and it is quite graphic, and for me that's something I've not really read before, so I really enjoyed reading something different. So Nori, very good choice. I cannot wait to read My Best Friend's Exorcism, which Nori also very kindly gave me.
I'm
always gifting books.
Who wants to go next, Zoe or Mariette?
I don't mind. I'm controversial, so Mariette, maybe you should go.
Okay, yeah, because I'm now doing this on my phone. I can't remember what I gave it on Goodreads, but I'm assuming it was a 3 or a 4 star. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good book, and like it had the right level of darkness, because I'm not the biggest fan of horror books. I find horror books easier to read than I do watching horror films. And like Jess said, I did enjoy the villain, and there were parts of it that were just so like squirmy, and just made you want to squirm. I can't really, but I did very much enjoy it, and I find it very hard talking about books without spoiling them, because my brain just wants to like use examples, and like we're not in that section yet.
No, we're not in the zone, so spoiler free.
Yeah,
No, I couldn't find Merritt's. It just goes straight to my rating, but yeah.
Oh.
I'm on it. You rated it 4 stars, Mariette.
Thank you. I wanted to do this on my laptop, but it just wasn't working. I was like 2 seconds behind the rest of you in movements and voices.
Oh no.
Yeah, I've got my laptop up here, so I've just got it up. So I got you.
Any other thoughts, Mariette?
Not without being too spoilery, but I did very much enjoy it, and I enjoyed the writing style. Like, I enjoyed the way the author wrote the story and how it was told, if that makes sense. Because you have a story like that, and it could be told very differently, but I think it was handled very well.
Yes. Right, Zoe. Zozo.
Yeah. I'm really sorry. I'm going to be incredibly controversial. I really didn't enjoy it. I think, but I would like to say, I do think it was a very good pick for book club. I was very excited for the discussion. I was like, this is going to be a very, very good conversation. And I have said that to Jess. I will say that it has been said. I was battling between a 2 and a 3, and I was then like, I want, again, with the half-star ratings on Goodreads, it needs to be a thing.
It does.
I went with 3 because it is a very well-written book, and I was like, just because of my like disagreements with content and things like that, that doesn't take away from how well the book is actually written. So I gave it a 3 because I was like, I'm not going to give it a 2 out of spite because it is like a well-written book. However, for me, I mean, we can go into it. I don't know what your questions are going to be, Nori, but I think it was, I think it was like a well-written book, and there's a lot of complex themes and things like that. But for me, just because I'm not a horror person in general, For me, I cannot comprehend why someone would write a book like this. That's where my head's at. But we'll go into discussion. But
that's fair.
But
I'm always the opposite. I'm like, where would you get this idea from? This is great. Like,
so I think it's going to be a great discussion because we've all got very good, but I did think it was a very good, I did say it's a very good pick for a book club because we're going to have a lot to talk about, and I think that's going to be great.
I mainly picked it because it has the word book club in the title.
Yeah. I was trying to think about us in relation to those characters. I was like, oh, who's who?
Oh my God. You know what we need to do? We need to actually do that right at the very end. Just decide who is who.
Dangerous.
Because that would be hilarious.
I'm trying to decide which Friends character you would be. Like, I just feel like there's a bit of everyone in all of them in some ways.
Chandler or Phoebe?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely some of Rachel, but also a bit of like Chandler, but also a bit of Monica and a bit of not Ross, but like everyone else.
I am the small good bits of Ross. I'm the academic.
The very small good bits of Ross.
Yeah.
Ross is the worst.
I love Ross. Oh, we are so different.
He's all right. He's all right until he cheats on her.
He has his good moments, but I was watching it again recently and I was like, he's just so possessive. It's like
he's a misogynist.
And he's like, oh my God, me and Rachel haven't dated for 6 years and I'm not okay. Spoilers if you haven't watched Friends, but whatever. This isn't the spoiler-free zone for Friends, so whatever, I don't care. But like when Joey and Rachel want to start dating, and it's like 6 years after Ross and Rachel have had that whole thing and he's still not over it. And I was like, dude, shut up. Like, no one wants your opinion.
Well, Chloe's just said this, nobody is Ross. So thank you, my darling.
Yeah.
And she was also like, Zoe, she gives you full permission to spill the controversial tea.
Thanks, Chloe.
So without further ado, shall we get into the discussion proper? And Nori, let me know when you want me to change the banner to the spoiler zone.
All right. I'm trying to think I sort of try to do the questions into non-spoiler and spoilery. I think I might move one of the questions to spoiler zone. But first, let's have a very weird, fun question that I've thought of. If you're in a town like Mount Pleasant, what classic movie monster would you want to fight and why?
Ooh, see, my hometown, I mean, I guess if it's the English equivalent, would be the perfect setting, like middle of the countryside, not too far from the city, but also like close enough to get there, whatever. I'm trying to think. That's a good question. I don't know.
Like classic movie monsters, like vampires, werewolf, mummies.
I want to say werewolf because there's a lot of farmland around me.
The Black Lagoon.
Like the farmers starting to be like, what's going on? Why are my sheep disappearing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say werewolf maybe. I'm not sure.
I think in Blandford a vampire would do very well because everybody's out on a night out on a Friday. Even during the middle of the week, people are out, and the vampire would do very, very well, and they would be able to get in to places. But because I'm so like protective of where I am, of like my house and everything, a vampire wouldn't get anywhere near me. Also, asexual, so no vampire will be able to charm his way into my house. So I think I'd be pretty good.
Oh, what if he arrives with a stack of books?
Yeah, no, then I'd be like, this is creepy. Also, I'm seeing a girl, so jog on.
I would be like, leave the books at the door.
Yeah,
carry on.
Leave the books at the door.
Oh, if she arrived as a vampire, I'd just be like, honey, come on in. I accept
your fate.
to quote a Dan and Phil video, I've seen you batting to the fridge. I want some of that. Nibble me, babe. Quote Dan and Phil, they turn Dill into a vampire. Nibble me.
Oh.
Anyway. Mariette.
My choice.
Nori, go for it.
Monster?
Yeah, Nori, go. I don't know.
I don't want to go because I've got the best answer in my own opinion, so I want to hear what you guys say.
Okay, then we'll wait for Nori. Zoe, go.
I'm the same. I live in a tiny little village in the middle of the countryside, so we've had it all here. We're a little bit, we've had all sorts in our village. I'm not going to spill because we're live. What would I have?
Because you've got things to choose from, like vampire, mummy, ghost.
I think ghost. I think ghost. That's the one that, excuse the pun, it screamed to me. Because we've got like a beautiful church that, would kind of be at the graveyard.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
And then we've got like the park where all the kids play with the swings. I've got a garage, tools flying everywhere. I think my village would lose their mind at a ghost. So let's go. I'm going to go ghost for my village.
And you've got a friend who's into the paranormal who could exorcise said ghost.
We had also, apparently, I think this is true. We had someone in the village who was one of the Death Eaters in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Never met them.
Amazing.
So, that's they've kind of got ghost-like qualities. So yeah, I'll go ghost.
Mariette.
I don't really know. Like, if I'm going with like childhood house where my parents live, it's the middle of nowhere. Honestly, like some kind of creature could live there and no one would know because no one really talks to each other. It's that kind of the middle of nowhere.
It is. I can confirm.
Where I live now in my flat in Cardiff, I mean, any number of things could do well in Cardiff. There's a lot of people here. The vampires, like ghosts could probably do well. I think the only thing the only thing I don't think would happen very well in Cardiff is a werewolf, or like a sea monster, because I live by with the river, so a sea monster would be quite cool in Cardiff. That would be an issue, like because Cardiff has a big river.
I don't know if anyone ever watched Being Human back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys need to. I mean, I only watched the first like 2 or 3 seasons. It had Aidan Turner in it. Paul Dark.
Yeah.
I love him. Anyway, so not the reason I watched it, but that's the reason I love him now. Anyway, he's in like 3 seasons or something. But it's set in Bristol, and there's a ghost, a werewolf, and a vampire live together.
Yeah.
So I can see all 3 of those being in a city from that show.
Now, you know what's got to be in Cardiff? You know what has to be in Cardiff? A dragon.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also, I was about to say, not to copy Zoe's idea, but there was this book that I remember having, which is like ghost stories of Devon or something, or the West Country or whatever. And apparently the church in my town is haunted. Like, it's in the book, and it has apparently a ghost. So,
well, the ghost that lives in my house tried to tank the stream before it even started, so Frank knocked my Wi-Fi router over. Nori, your answer.
My answer is the correct answer. I would battle the Swamp Thing because all I would need is a couple dehumidifiers and a shitload of hair dryers.
nice.
Dry that guy out, can't do anything, dies, Nori wins, I receive a crown, a sash, and the key to the city.
Absolutely.
I love it. And it would go very well with your whole
I'm not
attire.
thinking too much about this.
No.
Obviously.
I love that. That's amazing.
That's the end of the spoiler-free zone.
Oh, okay.
I want to get into.
Yeah,
I want to get into this.
The spoiler zone.
First of all, can we just talk about how Amazon delivered this book with all the crap still on it? Look.
Oh my god.
No.
I was so disappointed. I can't get it off. So it's ruined.
Well, you know what we'll have to do? We'll have to go up to Hemel Hempstead and just get another copy.
Yeah.
I do think we should go as a whole book.
I can drive.
Road trip as a book club when Janet's back in the country.
Dangerous.
I mean, I have suggested road trip to Moscow, but
I'm game. But it's a bit tough
I
at the
think
minute.
we were all on board with that, if I remember the track correctly. There was lots of road trip gifts.
Probably,
Yeah.
Good gift.
like 4 days or something like that. I can't remember what the total was, but
Yeah.
or 2 days, something like that.
Anyway, spoiler zone.
First question for everyone. what was the most impactful moment? The moment that made you want to scream, the moment that made you want to cry, the moment that made you laugh out loud. Most impactful to you.
Okay, I'm gonna say, sorry to but if no one else agrees with me, did we read the same book? The bit when she finally gets her friends on board and they're gonna do everything and get it on with it. And then the husbands come in and just like mansplain everything. And I'm like, no, you're just reading these scary little books. Like, it's okay. I'm gonna throw Gloria at you.
Gloria. Yeah, that was.
I was just there, like,
yeah.
That was the bit where I just wanted to like.
I got so angry.
Oh my god! Oh my god! It reminded me. I haven't been that angry. I think I said in the chat since I read *The Woman in White* by Wilkie Collins. It's not exactly the same, but it's still a man having things work his way, and you're like, you slimy son of a insert appropriate word here because whatever.
The only word we are not allowed to say is the C word. Go for it, Janet.
I mean, I have to remember that I'm a teacher, so I don't know who's going to come across this video in the future. So I'll let your imaginations run wild, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like,
just like that is the same for me. Just the line I put a tabby next to it, but you know it's going down and it's not going to be good. Is ladies, Carter said. Clearly, the other men had elected him their spokesman. We need to have a serious talk. I'm like you dumb face.
Yeah, I don't even know what I said on that section.
I'm just trying to find the quote and everything. I know I wrote stuff down, and I've just found one of my notes, which is page 248. Me thinks Carter is an asshole.
I've got a discussion question about that.
Yeah, I have one saying in capitals, I hate how arrogant Carter is.
In fact, he's also a therapist, and the line, would you ladies be open to hearing another perspective?
Yeah, don't psychologize me. Well, if we're doing early on, page 21, sorry, Janet, they're talking about, I think that's their OG book club, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And they say, I thought we wanted to better ourselves, expose ourselves to thoughts and ideas from outside Mount Pleasant. The men all say it's not too clever for a girl to be clever, and they laugh at us and think we only care about our hair. The only books they give us are cookbooks because in their minds we are silly, lightweight, know-nothings, and you have just proven them right. Sets it up quite well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've just found one of my favorite quotes from that bit, and I've highlighted it and written it down and put it in my quotes section for the month because it impacted me so much, which was no, Patricia said, if you haven't heard what we have to say, then you have no right to tell us who we can and can't speak to. We're not our mothers. This isn't the 1920s. We're not some silly biddies sitting around sewing all day and gossiping. We're in the old village more than any of you, and something is very wrong here. If you had any respect for us at all, you'd listen. And I was just like, yes, Patricia.
Yeah.
But then, mansplaining.
It's funny looking through my highlights now because I can't remember what I highlighted, and I haven't got like loads. But on the quote where it says, "There isn't anything wrong with him because people who have something wrong with them don't live here," and Grace says that. My highlighted bit was in capitals again. Damn it, Grace, he's a vampire. It's like by this point, it's like quite obvious. But Grace is. I quite liked Grace. I annoyed me almost as much as the men did. But like, she pulls through. So I was like, okay, well, I can kind of see that coming a little bit. At the end, I was like, she's either gonna be like the savior, sort of, or she's gonna come crawling back.
And she did both.
Yeah.
I wondered for a moment if she was having an affair with James Harris, actually. I did wonder if I was like, maybe she's so defensive of him because actually she's invited him here and she's in love with him because he's exciting.
Yeah.
Obviously it didn't happen, but you know.
The answer is no. Her husband is just the worst.
I did love her and Patricia's relationship in the end when she helps clean up stuff and I really liked her and Grace's relationship in the end and how it went through so many arcs. But anything else to say on the husbands hijacking the discussion.
You know, I also found that really heartbreaking, just the fact that she can't do anything in that situation. Like, none of them can do anything in that situation. And I was just there, like, she literally just has to, like, I don't know, she knows that she's telling the truth and she's not crazy, but, like, yeah, I don't know. I was just like, oh, babe, I want to give you a hug.
For me, that was point near the end.
Yeah.
When James Harris is sort of brought in there, all the women are told they have to apologise and shake his hand.
Oh my God.
And Patricia says, Mr. Harris, she said, you do not remove your hand from my face immediately. I'm going to spit on it.
That was so good.
Like, yeah, she's still like, she doesn't apologise. So,
Yeah.
yes. And then later on, when like, it's like, I've got another question. It's like, Carter, always an evil arsehole, just becomes one in the book. My thing is, he's always been an absolute butt.
Yeah, but we'll get to that.
Yes.
Are
there any other moments?
Yeah. I totally agree with that, but also the rats.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Can I just say the rats? And also when James is found feeding. All of those scenes were really, really impactful and really creepy and really atmospheric.
Hiding in the attic with the bugs.
And
the body.
The first, like, okay, no, the first creepy scene was probably the rats, but when there's someone on the roof, that scene as well, I was like, and then what's the daughter called again? Corey or something like that.
Corey.
Yeah. And she's like, I saw someone outside, and then the mum's like, what's her name? Patricia's like, she's reading a scary book or like something by Stephen King, and I was like, it's so ironic that the men are accusing these women of just being scared because they're reading scary books. Ooh. And then she says the same thing to her daughter, like, no, there's no one outside, you're just reading a scary book. And it's like, no, it's this vampire.
She made me jump when she opens the door. That bit actually did make me jump, because I think I was so in it. I was like, because I thought about all the times I've been babysitting and I've convinced myself someone's outside. I'm like, it would happen while I'm babysitting. And then just the fear of opening the door and someone being there, I actually genuinely did jump at that bit. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, but also with the sun, I think, what's the sun? Is he blue?
Messed up.
He's
That's
also like,
Junior there.
Yeah, he's also like, no, I saw someone too, and I was like, oh, for God's sake, no, you didn't. Where's this going? And even at that point, I was like, it's a neighbor, and then he just happens to be outside. And I'm like, it's a neighbor. But it was just, I think it was just written so well. I was just like Zoe said, like, I was really drawn in, and then he's just standing there, and I was like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next?
I think with me, like I say, the rats is so just like it's a fear, because that's what rats do. They burrow and they eat, and it was so gross. And like the description of it, and how Ursula is so powerless to do anything. She has to just barricade herself in the bathroom and stand on the toilet seat because they're coming up the drains, and it's just gross. And poor Miss Mary, I think. Yeah. The fact that the dog survived, I was happy.
Oh my God, yeah. That's why I had to message in the chat. I was like, guys, is Ragtag okay?
Yeah. But then also when
the chat for Ragtag.
When Patricia when she came across James Harris feeding on like the little girl and then on her daughter, it was just that, like, with the daughter, that was the final straw, and that's when she realized that yes, she was right, and she sets out on this martyr's path almost. I really like that moment, and like I say, the writing, his writing is so atmospheric. You feel like you're in there, and you feel the fear that the character is feeling, and you can smell things, you can see and feel and hear. His writing is just so simple yet immersive. I think that's what I loved. It was so easy to read. And it wasn't like, say, Of Mice and Men, where there's its own dialect in it. You can tell it's in the South, but you can tell that he's also taken the time to make it readable and make it accessible. And yes, we will say, if you're under the age of 18, get parental consent to read this, because it is dark, as Nori puts it, dark. But yeah, love it.
There's another moment I just remembered.
I had a different moment that was more of them. my moment was after the conversation had happened, and then Carter talks to Patricia about being on the antidepressants and things like that. And that moment when Patricia, she's just like, I can't do this anymore, and she takes all of them. That impacted me so much. And not only that, it was when she was in the hospital afterwards, and almost everyone was like, just a silly mistake, wasn't it? Like they just didn't want to understand what she was going through and the mental health impact it was all having. That moment like properly hit home for me.
Yeah. I literally have a note which is page 229, and I was flipping to see what that was, and my note that just says fuck, it's apt.
And the way that
literally, what is the quote? Carry on, Nori.
The way that Carter has twisted it as with their kids, sort of going like, now they're all messed up because of you. It's like, I've explained to them that you are unwell, and that he has her strapped down to the bed.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Like,
just like
she pulls her hand up and she can't. Like,
there's just so many moments in this that you just sort of like, you're thinking about, and then you remember another bit, like the bit with Miss Savage and the raccoon, and then the bit about the truth about the peach tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the quote for the pill bottle is, standing by the sink, she ran the water and washed the pill down the drain. She unscrewed the bottle and looked at it for a moment. Then she got out a glass, filled it, set it down, and began to take the entire bottle of pills one by one.
Yeah, that's from that moment onwards, like that just properly hit me to feel like, just because of how alone she felt, and I felt that way at various points and things like that.
Yeah.
And although the way that I envisioned doing it wasn't anything to do with pill bottles, it really properly struck me how alone that she must have felt, just because I felt it too. And then going to the hospital, just no one really believing her, everyone just being like, oh, it's a silly mistake, and turning people against her instead of being there for her. That moment was just
her kids saying, I hate you, and things like that.
But
just properly hit me like
another one as well was at the end, when first of all, when she says, Carter, I want a divorce, I was like, thank God for that. But when it's kind of showing their life over the next few months or whatever time frame it is, I can't remember, and then Carter's like, so basically, who do you want to live with, to the kids? And it was like, to Patricia's surprise as well, that they both said we want to live with her. And I was like, that's like what you want to hear. Like, at least there's some light at the end of this very dark tunnel. So I was just there, like, it's maybe not the most impactful moment, but it was nice to have that, I guess, as well. I was like, not all is lost, I guess.
Yeah, so. I found the quote. It's literally page 396 is ragtag, no, because he passed away because he was old. Page 397, haha, Carter, fuck you. Then he asked them who they wanted to live with during the week. They both surprised Patricia by saying, Mum. I love that.
Yeah. The fact Carter is saying is like, because your mum has chosen this, your mum has to move out. She doesn't get any of this nice stuff because this is her choice. So you're just an ass.
Yeah.
Zoe.
I have to say, the fact that it makes you feel the way you feel, I think, is a credit to the book, because he's obviously gone out of his way to try and horrify you and make you so distressed. And I have to say he achieved that, because I just found it so. We'll get into it, but I think for me, I don't like the bit when she goes around the back and there's the description of Miss Savage eating the raccoon. That made me feel sick. But I think the moment that I feel like I might have shut the book at this point was when Patricia opens the van door.
Yeah.
And there's the little girl. And I think for me, I couldn't quite understand what he was doing at that point.
Yeah.
And what I originally thought he was doing disgusted me so much, and I couldn't understand why he'd written it. I mean, what he was doing wasn't much better, but it wasn't what my initial thought was, which was yeah. And then there was the discussion about the thing in his mouth, and I couldn't understand what that was. But I think just the fact that it was, he'd written so, you'd already felt sorry for this child because she's poverty stricken, she's struck down by racial prejudice and the life she leads already, and you're made to make her feel that she's so innocent, and you already kind of sympathize with her, and then you suddenly read that she's being violated in this way as well. That was where I think I shut the book. I think I had to take
I remember you texting me.
I think I had to take a moment after that. So I reckon there were lots of moments that impacted me, and I think some of like definitely Janet, the way you were saying with the husbands, that you just want to punch them all. But as an impact, that was the first thing that came to mind when Nori asked the question, was which moment impacted you the most. It was definitely when Patricia opened the van door in the woods. That really, I think I shut the book then.
I've just thought of a couple more. So obviously Slick being attacked in her house is horrific, and I thought, is this going to turn into some alien shit? I really thought that it was going to turn into like face huggers and thankfully it didn't, but God rest Slick. But also I've just found my note, page 391, which is when Patricia's thinking about Miss Mary, her mother-in-law, and the fact that it says Patricia would always remember about Miss Mary wasn't the hard meals or the shock of finding her that night after Grace's party, or the roach falling into her water glass, but it was how much you had to love your son to come back from hell to warn him. And then she remembered Miss Mary hadn't come back to warn Carter, she'd come back to warn her.
I was just about to say that last bit, like that she came back to warn her. I highlighted that as well.
I highlighted that with my cute family relations color tab. So it's one of like two, maybe one, maybe in the whole book. Who hasn't said their favorite book yet?
I mean, I could go on, but I won't.
The impact, James, I think everything that James Harris has is impactful. I think I've got another quote here, which is so subtle, but it just shows the, what's the word? Him, the being of him. That's, do you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Kind of.
Just how imposing he is as a character. That might be what I'm trying to say. At page 96, at the bottom, when he gets invited to the book club, it's like, no, James, go away.
Oh my God.
And anyway, he says, it sits down and it says, James Harris sat down on the sofa beside Mary Ellen across from Kitty and Grace, and everyone pulled their legs together, tucked their skirts beneath their thighs and straightened their spines. I was like, that is so, like, the fact that they feel so threatened just by the fact that he's a man in their presence, and that they feel like they have to do all of that. And it's just such a natural instinct. I was like, that's so sad. Like, that's so...
when you think about it like that,
it's so, because it was just a reaction, it's a reflex. Yeah, and that's really sad.
And it's also, again, coming back to what we were talking about, like at the very beginning, it's
it's what?
She is frozen again.
It's what?
Cliffhanger.
What is
it?
Am I still here?
Yeah,
you're back.
Wait.
Or not.
Sort of.
Janet,
there's a monster.
It's a what?
It comes. Oh, okay.
Are you there?
I think we can.
The weather.
I think you're back.
Yeah.
Are you back? Yeah. Go forth. Carry on.
So who's talking?
It was you.
You are.
You left us with a cliffhanger.
Okay. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier when I was saying about Bite and how that guy cannot write women. Like, this is such a thing that most women know, what Zoe's just pointed out. Like, when you are threatened by a man, you do tend to shrink into yourself and get that very defensive body posture. So yeah, that's what I was trying to say before the weather cut me off.
The moment I was trying to think of was when she first calls the police, I think, on him, on what's his name, James, and he comes over and he doesn't know that it's her, and she knows he doesn't know, but he knows something. And I don't think I've highlighted it, and I'm really annoyed at myself. I think, is it this one? Yes. Okay. So the woman who cleaned for my great aunt disappeared, he said, and I heard that someone was spreading the story that the last place she was seen was my house. The insinuation is that I had something to do with it. And Patricia knew the police had been to see him. They hadn't said her name. He hadn't seen her last night. But he was suspicious and had come here to test her, to see if he could jolt her into revealing something. Clearly, he had never been to a cocktail party in the old village before. And I just love, like, the tension, but he also, like, he breaks it subtly with, like, a bit of humor, like, added in here and there. 'Cause, like the cocktail party thing as well. I was just like, I mean, I've never had to host a cocktail party, but I completely get it. Like, I get what he's trying to say. But that whole scene, Patricia's just like, oh, who would say that? Oh. And then he comes inside, and I guess this must have been like the early stages of him and Carter being friends. But then he comes inside, and where is it? So yeah, she doesn't tell him that she called the police, but then Carter goes and like throws her under the bus, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
And there's this whole time she's there trying to have that, like, you know, eye connection or whatever with your husband, like that marital like thing, and he just doesn't get it. Every time she tries, he doesn't get it.
Or he does, and he purposefully chooses to ignore it.
Yeah, and what is he? I'm just trying to find it now. Let's see. Bear with.
Bear with.
Also, I remember he makes Patricia explain to Blue what apparently she did.
Blue needs help.
Yeah.
I swear Blue will become a psychopath.
Yeah, I feel so bad for him. Carter made eye contact, and Patricia flicked her eyes from her husband to James Harris and put everything inside her heart, everything they shared in their marriage. She put it all in her eyes in a way only he could see, and he got it. Play it safe, her eyes said. Play dumb. Carter broke eye contact and turned to James Harris. We need to clear the air, he said. You have to realize that Patty feels terrible about what she said to the police. And I was like, no! Oh, man. It was just so frustrating. That was like the first like proper point. I was like, are you okay? Like, Carter, are you okay? But yeah. And then Blue's like, what did Mom do? And yeah. So I knew it would happen. I knew I'd get frustrated all over again, but here we are.
The first scene with Carter where you go, oh, he's definitely not a good person. This was even before he met James Harris, was when after the attack, Mrs. Savage attacks Patricia and her ear gets messed up and she loses her earring. He's like, we're going to have to try and find the earring. He's like, oh, it's fine. One of my patients gave it to me for free. I'll just pick you up something from the pharmacy.
Yeah.
It's like, for her, those pearl earrings were like such a like moment of he actually cares. Like sort of like that re-upping faith in the person you love the most. And it turns out to be
nothing.
Yeah.
I just want to share a quote that made me. It was the first one I highlighted, and it just. When I say I cackled, I'm not sure what the appropriate gesture is to make towards the family of the woman who bit off your ear, but if you felt absolutely compelled, I certainly wouldn't take food.
Yeah, that made me laugh. That was good.
It was just so unexpected. I was like, well, I mean, okay. But yeah, anyway, just wanted to share that one because I liked it.
What about you, Nori? What about you?
What
was your most impactful scene?
Oh, the scene with the husband, and then also the terror of when they were cleaning up after she gone down from the cellar and all the like things were all dirty and they were like trying to speed clean. And then I don't know if I put a tab on it. I don't think I did, which is a shame. But there's like one line between Grace and Ursula Green right at the end. Where is it? Where they're just like, after casually dismembering James Harris, just sort of like talking about sort of like, oh, what should we it's like about their cleaning regimens. And it's like, oh, what do you use? I use this. It's like, oh, with this? No, with this. Oh, interesting. It's just
here it is. I've got it. It's on page 388. Let's see if we can find some hydrogen peroxide for these bloodstains in the carpet, Grace said. I prefer ammonia, Mrs. Green said. Hot water? Grace said. No cold. Interesting, Grace said.
Yeah. Because I think if you put hot water on like bloodstains, it actually makes it worse. So cold is better or something.
Yeah,
cold gets fresh. That's why I know this.
It's just that little thing of like, oh, it's like, yeah, we both clean basically all the time. So just having a casual chat, sort of like making a friend over a dead body. But not dead body.
When after she's hiding in the attic, and is it Kitty who comes and saves her? Bless Mrs. Green for like just being a lifesaver. I kind of wanted her to be the protagonist a little bit. Like half the time I was like, I want to know her story. But Kitty comes in, and then it's like when it felt like I was watching a thriller or something, like when I was reading it, like them getting out the house before he sees them, and then they're like, wait, they're like paper towels or whatever, because she's got her footprints or something in the carpet. I can't remember exactly. And I was just there like, oh my god, I'm stressed. But I need to know.
Like, he drops his keys, so he has to pick them. I was like, oh thank goodness. Making sure that Kitty sees the body in the attic.
Oh my god, I was just there like.
With that whole scene in the attic, I mean, the whole scene in the attic is in itself is a thing.
When he's prowling around going, I know you're here.
That's
and she's just like, no.
Thinking about all the bugs like on her face and stuff. I just thought, I don't watch much of, what's it called? I'm a celebrity. Yeah, but like that's why I would never go on it, because I don't like bugs. Like I will appreciate them from afar, but like not that close. And I was just there like, I mean, like I hate moths. That's probably the worst one for me. But yeah, I was just there like old clothes, dust, moths. No thanks. Not great.
It's just that whole page 294, and it's like right at the top, and he goes, everything was silent for a few minutes, and then from right beneath the trapdoor, a sing-song voice drifted up, and he goes, Patricia, I know you're in here. And he said, the fact they say he sang it, and I was like, oh, I can just hear it.
It's like when I'm looking for my siblings, it's like, where could they be? I'm looking for a muffins. Where's the muffins? Muffins is the nickname I give to my youngest sibling.
Okay.
I'm not actually talking about literal muffins, but I do sing that song to literal muffins on a regular. Whenever I get them, I'm singing to them before I eat them up.
Shall we move on?
Sorry, I was going to say that last scene I was talking about. Kudos to Patricia for thinking about like putting the dust back, because I would not have thought of that. I was like, she's a quick thinker. That's why she is a survivor. That's why she has not died so far. Yeah. But I was expecting James, since he's a vampire, to have like superhuman senses or whatever, and like sense her out and find her under the clothes. I don't know. I'm glad.
I think he knew she was there. I think he did.
I think he did as well. But maybe, I don't know. I was just there like, oh, okay. Is he not going to look under the big pile of clothes? That might be a place for someone to hide. Maybe. I don't know. Apparently not.
Anyway, should we move on to Nori's next question? Because I'm aware we've been talking for a long time.
The next bit is, I am a lover of vampires, as many might know. Dracula, I love the different types of vampire you see, and the description of James Harris and his particular type of vampirism is just so unique to me and fascinating. I wanted to sort of get everyone's opinion on it, because it's like he's like a giant mosquito human, sort of. That's how I imagined it in my head.
Yeah. Can I go first?
Yes.
So it kind of reminded me of the I Am Legend vampires, during the day, they are just like shriveled up husks, and he goes around staking them. The movie is completely different. It's about zombies, but yeah. The book is far, far superior. Would highly recommend if you like vampires. And he has this rivalry with a certain vampire who comes and tries to get in the house all the time and things like that. But anyway, post-apocalyptic, and he goes around staking all these vampires throughout the day, and they are described very similarly to James Harris when Patricia sees him the first time in the house, all shriveled up and eyes sunken, sallow skin, things like that. And I agree with you, Nora. I love the different takes on it, because the mandible thing that he has, like the cockroachy mouth or whatever, is so different to anything I've ever read. Because I'm also going to bring this back to skullduggery. The vampires in that are so, so different. Literally, these people shed their skins and there's a monster underneath, like a snake shedding its skin. And then you have your Dracula, your Nosferatu, and then you have like your Helsing Ultimate, your Alucards, which are again very, very different. It's a monster that you can play with and adapt, but they still have that essence of a vampire. And I really love that Grady Hendrix was able to put his own spin on it and create something that is both familiar but different. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at.
We've got the most important type of vampire, which is the Edward Cullen type of vampire.
The sparkly one, yeah. Also, Hermione's just joined. Hello.
Hi.
No commentary. What?
From what Janet just said, I'm honest. The main thing like about vampires and stuff, I really only know is like the teenage rom-com fictional version of them. Your Edward Collins, your Vampire Diaries, your True Blood, that kind of sort of. That kind of vampire. I read the True Blood books. I did never watch the show. I will say that now. So like James is such a completely different vampire from what I'm used to, but it's so cool to have that kind of vampire image as well. I forgot Buffy. I love Buffy.
Oh yeah.
So I've never really heard of vampires having be able to like control rats or something like that before. So that like when that happened, that really threw me off. I was like can't be a vampire who can control rats. That's not a thing they could do. So that bit threw me off initially. So like I thought it was really cool to see a different kind of vampire than what I was used to, and that is just because I went through my vampire phase when it was all like your Vampire Diaries kind of vampires instead of your Draculas and things like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. Like I mean, I don't tend to read much horror anyway. I was kind of expecting to be more scared. I felt like this was more like what I would consider to be like a horror thriller. Maybe that is the genre, I'm not sure. But because it felt so realistic at times, and it was like, that's what creeped me out. I was like, that weird shadow could be a vampire, anyway. I found like since I read this, actually, there's been more references to like vampire tropes that he's used that I had no idea about before reading this. I don't know if that makes sense. So like the whole having to be invited inside, I didn't know that was a thing until I read this, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting point. And then I saw somewhere that like that's a thing in vampire lore or whatever, or in some vampire lore maybe, I don't know, like that they have to be invited inside. And I was like, wait, that's a thing? Didn't know that. I think there's something else, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, I was kind of, I liked how, it wasn't just the whole, he has to be outside at night, like he can go out in the day. And that obviously helps him in his sort of pretense that he's normal. What is normal? You know what I mean? Like not a vampire.
What is normal nowadays?
So I mean, kind of like what you guys have said already. I don't really have much else other than that to say. So.
Zozo?
Sort of like...
Remind me of the question. Sorry, I was listening so intently to Janet.
It just talked about the description of the type of vampire James Harris is.
Right, yeah. I'm going to be honest, I don't know anything about vampires. I know about Mona the Vampire from my previous days.
Yes.
It's the most iconic theme tune, can we just say?
Absolutely. And I think I know the stereotypes. So the whole thing about like garlic and the steaks and Dracula, you know, that kind of like turning into bats and stuff. I don't really have much knowledge. I didn't know there were lots of different types of vampires and things like that. He didn't seem, I think, because you think of a vampire stereotype, you think of a long dark cloak, canines, and purple skin, you know, that kind of thing, or whatever it is. And I think because he was so, as we say, he looked like a man until you see whatever that thing is living in his mouth. He's just, I think maybe that makes him more menacing because everything that he can do you can't see. And I don't know,
he's got all the attributes that would make a human male terrifying, in that he can be so manipulative and he has that position of authority. Couple that with the supernatural side and he is a force to be reckoned with. He's scary.
And even the end, like, he's literally being, we're in the spoiler zone. He's literally being cut into pieces and
decapitated,
and he doesn't die.
Yeah.
And he just like listens and just talks to them. But the fact that he still talks about how this isn't going to end him and like, you can keep doing this, but he's not bothering him, essentially. It makes you feel like, why? What are you going to do? And I think the fact that he'd talked about what he'd left Slick, and when she's ripe again or whatever, and I was like, oh no, don't say that.
I think it makes me sound like, I don't know why I didn't think about that point when, like, you know, that whole scene happened, but when he mentioned it, I was like, I did not even think about that.
Didn't you? I did. I was like, oh no, she's going to be seeded.
Yeah.
That is now my favorite phrase to describe getting pregnant. I am using that from now on. She was seeded.
And I think he's so, I think maybe because his characteristics are so creepy that is his characteristic of being a vampire. He's not a stereotypical vampire, and I think that's what makes him so scary, because he's unpredictable.
He's so unassuming.
Yeah. So on my limited knowledge of vampires, that's let's go with that.
I kind of forgot about this, but like the first time, what's her name, Patricia goes inside his house, first of all, it just breaks in, like, with your pie, why don't you?
It's a casserole, actually.
Sorry, my bad. But like the description of him, and she thinks he's dead, and then it's like how she tries to do like CPR, and it's like sandpaper, and it's so dry and crusty and gross, and I was like, ugh. But yeah, I was just there like, I mean, I know this is about a vampire, so I know what to expect, but like, ugh. Not a fan.
The fact, like, I just like the fact that in, like, just twist the genre slightly, this is a weird vampire romance with a housewife who's bored and her husband doesn't love her, and then an enigmatic neighbor moves in across the street, and there's this weird connection between them. Turns out he's a vampire, and oh my goodness, and then take all the creep out, add weird romance stuff, and then people being weird about him being like townspeople going, there's something wrong with him, and then they have to leave together to pursue their vampire love and what, like 3 extra turns. This is a romance.
That's what I thought it was going to be when I read the first page or two. Like, I know you said it was horror, and I know all that stuff has been in, but then like you meet James and he starts coming to dinner and like integrates himself in their lives so much to start with. It's like, obviously that's going to be the main thing, and then the monster's going to come a bit later on. Obviously, it would. I generally, that's how I read it to start with, just because like that he integrated himself so well into their lives to start with.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Like, I just remember I mean, we've kind of touched on this already, but I was just literally so immersed in it. Like, I still can't get over it. I think I read it in 4 days, but I'm trying to double check, which is quite good for me considering like.
You're working full time.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it now. But yeah, just couldn't put it down, you know?
Should we move on to the next question while you're trying to find that?
Yeah,
because
sure.
we've been on for like nearly an hour and 10 minutes.
Yes. Well, I'll just move on to my final question, which is my second left field fun question. In a vampire battle royale between Edward Cullen, Bram Stoker's Dracula, James Harris, and the Count from Sesame Street, who would win?
Count from Sesame Street, he'd come to the left side and get it and take them all out. I believe in that Muppet. Sesame
Also-
Street puppet.
Also, the Count would stay out of the battle. The other three would annihilate each other, and the Count would reign supreme.
Exactly. He would win.
Crush them with giant numbers.
He'd just be like,
Exactly.
3 are dead.
I read it in 5 days, if anyone cares.
Awesome. Battle Royale. Who would win, Janet and Zoe?
Sorry, who were the options? I was kind of half listening.
Edward Cullen, Bram Stoker's Dracula, James Harris, and the Count from Sesame Street.
Count from Sesame Street. I
To
say
admit,
it
I'm
down.
actually really familiar, like properly familiar with Edward Cullen and James Harris. I mean, between the two, I would have to say James Harris, because sparkles aren't really going to get you anywhere, are they? But
Yeah, I think we need to pick some battles, like pick some different scenarios, like pit individual ones against each other.
Yeah.
But Zoe, out of those 4,
I've never seen Twilight. I know, sorry.
you survived something. You dodged a bullet.
Yeah. I think I'm Team Jacob though. If that's that's probably not a good thing to say.
He is the better choice.
But I don't know. I've never seen it.
We will have a discussion about this later.
I think, just because of, again, my familiarity with any of them, I'd have to say James Harris or Dracula, just because Dracula is the vamp.
The big guy.
I think I've lost you all again.
I'm still here.
Slightly frozen, but we can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
Hey, there we go.
I keep losing everybody. Is it me?
It might be the weather, because
Anyway,
yeah.
so yeah, I would say James Harris.
Hermione's just chipped in her answer. Edward, he would brute them to death.
I mean,
That is true.
yeah.
He just
Like,
he'd blind them with his sparkles.
Yeah, he's the modern vampire, so if they're all placed in this day and age, then it's possible.
That's true.
But there are better modern vampires than him.
Yeah.
So Edward Cullen, no, he loses. He sparkles. He never had a proper fight. Like the fight that you see in Twilight is just Alice's vision. Like we don't actually know how Edward fights. In my head, he's probably awful. So he loses.
But
Yeah.
I think Edward
Baseball.
Cullen is probably going to lose in each of these scenarios. Even against the Count from Sesame Street.
Yeah.
He would just be so confused.
Yeah.
And the Count from Sesame Street is an old vampire. He knows all the tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I
So
think
let's
Dark Horse,
put
the
them all.
Count.
Let's put them all into like 2, like 1-on-1. Who would win? Nori, like try putting them in 1-on-1s for us.
So Edward Cullen versus the Count from Sesame
Count.
Street.
The
The
Count.
The
Let's
trickier
be
one.
real. The Count's been around for a long time, so he'll probably know how to turn his body into mist, into bats, regenerate, and still be able to do like grade A
Even
maths.
with a guy's hand up his butt.
Yep. What is up your butt? An arm. To quote Thomas Sanders.
Then the harder one is Bram Stoker's Dracula versus James Harris. They both have the control over animals. Dracula's being like particularly wolves, things like that. Dracula can transform where James Harris cannot, but Dracula cannot go out during the day as James Harris can.
I don't
And
know
also
huge
Dracula
amount-
has his wives as well.
Yeah, I don't know huge
I'm
amounts
not
about
counting the
that.
wives, because
Okay.
then we're going to have to like give James Harris some people back him up.
Yeah,
James
so I
Harris
haven't
and
read
husbands.
Dracula, so I'm not as familiar with like his side of things, but like from the common knowledge that I do know, I still want to say James Harris. I just feel like he's got this
Yeah.
like, worldly sort of knowledge that might add to his favor, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like,
I'd also agree with that, because Dracula has mainly been in Transylvania, and if he were in America, he wouldn't stand a chance.
I
If
think
he was
James would outsmart
if James Harris went to Transylvania,
Or
maybe
Victorian
it would be or Victorian London, it would be a bit more level pegging. But I think the fact that, like, if you took Dracula out of Victorian Transylvania or out of Victorian London, where he has that foreigner, aristocratic, pale, or auctoritas, which is like the authority that he naturally is imbued with because of all those things, he wouldn't stand a chance. I think James Harris would lay into him verbally and physically.
I have evidence to back up your point. In Buffy, he comes to America and Buffy slays him within, I think it's 1 episode. So, I mean, how good can he be? The Master took like an entire season and he kept trying to come back.
Yeah.
And the fact that I think Dracula himself would be a little more like amazed at sort of like James Harris and who he is, whereas James Harris is more self-interested and very much he has like his one thing is that he has a hunger and he will take and take and take and take. He won't appreciate that there's someone like Dracula around. He's just gonna go, I'm gonna take your wives and just so I think James Harris would win.
Yeah, Dracula's kind of like a collector, isn't he?
Yeah, sort of like very much like I am the leader of my coven of things. And I just personally love Dracula. I wish Dracula could win this fight, but he would not. He would definitely win over Edward Cullen.
Yeah.
Just hands down.
Well, I'll bring back up Hermione's point. He would bruise them to death.
I kind of
Zoe.
What can I say?
Oh, Janet.
Sorry. I don't have an answer, so Janet, go for it.
Okay.
I feel like Dracula could be a very close second, considering.
Okay.
I don't know. Like,
so out of the 4 of them.
So would Dracula win over the Count from Sesame Street?
I'm inclined to say yes.
I have no comments on this. I only really know about the Count. I don't know enough about Dracula to be able to give.
Well, the Count is
what are they fighting? What are they doing? You know, are they counting or are they killing people? Like,
I put vampire fight, so it's a vampire fight.
I think sadly the Count would lose that one because he is a Muppet.
Dracula could transform into a giant dog, which he can in Bram Stoker's Dracula, and just grab his little felt Muppety head and go like this.
And control all of the other animals around him and things like that.
Oh, take control of Big Bird and Snuffleupagus.
Oh my god.
He could get them to do the dirty work.
Yeah.
Oh my god, can you imagine that? Snuffleupagus and Big Bird.
The final matchup is between James Harris and the Count from Sesame Street. So Edward Cullen has lost all of the matches. Just say that now. Dracula has won 2 and lost 1. James Harris has won 2 so far, and the Count has won 1 and lost 1.
So the Count versus James Harris.
I mean, if we're saying the Count has control over Big Bird, that changes everything, because Big Bird, in my opinion, is just slightly terrifying. So most things would lose against it because I would run.
I somehow think the Count has the element of surprise in the fact that he's a Muppet.
Yeah.
Don't think James would see it coming, quite frankly. So,
like he didn't see the women coming to get him.
Yeah. But then, you know, if he somehow manages to get out of his grave and piece himself back together, he might be more aware next time to not underestimate the underdog.
That depends on if the Count has a box of matches.
Oh, yeah. It depends on the scenario.
I don't know who the Count is. I've never seen the Muppets. I'm really sorry.
I kind of don't really know either. I know enough.
I'm not very well rounded on this kind of thing. I do apologize. But I'm going to say the Count because I'm going to give him some straws to play with. I don't want him to feel completely left out or belittled of his title because he's the Count. Let me see.
This is the Count.
Maybe that's where I got the purple skin idea from for vampires. But yeah, I'm going to go him because he looks like he knows what he's doing.
Count von
Yeah.
count.
That's a tough one.
I'm going to give him a scratch on the poll. The count. There we go.
Yeah, I do think the count. I think he managed to take him by surprise because he can control Snuffleupagus and he can control Big Bird, and Big Bird is like 6-7 foot tall. So
Terrifying.
just get Big Bird.
I think the element of surprise and James Harris underestimating the count the same way he underestimated the women of that blizzard would lead to the count's victory over James Harris.
And I think that then the count would just be there with a box of matches, like 1 match, 2 match, sort of thing. And he'd just be counting them off. 600 matches,
So, from my calculations from the matches, all between the 4 competitors, Dracula, James Harris, and Count are in a 3-way tie. They both won 2 matches and lost 1 match. Dracula lost to James Harris, the Count lost to Dracula, and James Harris lost to the Count. And they all trounced Edward Cullen.
Yeah.
That's all your stuff knocked over.
So Mum's just come back. Frank knocked some stuff over. That's hence why I took out a headphone to listen. And apparently everything... We get it. You're here.
Would you like to input on the discussion of Dracula, James Harris versus the Count from Sesame Street? It's a 3-way tie. We need
Say that again for Frank Norrie.
Frank, would you like to join in the discussion? We're trying to decide between Dracula, James Harris from Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and the Count from Sesame Street, who would win in a 3-way fight. Knock once for yes, twice for no, 3 times for why are you asking me this?
I swear, if I hear 3 knocks, I will let you know.
Sage, eh?
Mum's threatening him with Sage. That's when you know it's bad.
On my nerves today.
It's usually just me that threatens him with Sage. So the 3-way fight. Oh, who would win? The Count, James Harris, and
I think in a 3-way fight.
Well, if you're saying the Count has matches, where is this battle taking place? Because if the Count has matches, then if they're like in a field or something, which in my head they're in a field and I can't tell you why, then the Count could just light a match and run away. The other 2 are up in flames.
See, I
the Count's made of felt.
She has a point.
I was imagining the Colosseum.
Ah.
I was imagining the from Legendborn where they do their trials. I'm not gonna lie. Cells.
Well, they can all seem to call forth beasts.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think James Harris's rats are going to beat Dracula's wolves and the Count's Big Bird and Snuffleupagus.
But then he's got the quantity of the rats.
And we have learned that a lot of rats do a lot of damage in this book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more...
Here's how I think it will play out, is that James Harris's rats will go for Snuffleupagus and Big Bird. And then Dracula's wolves will probably be like, let's take out the big other vampire. So then it's just Dracula versus the Count. That's how it goes in my head.
I think the Count might have been carried off by one of the rats. He's so little.
Yeah.
He's made of felt.
I was going to say, I think that is a winner. Because, like, you know, when you were saying they all have their strengths and their weaknesses, like, they could all kill each other out and there's no winner. Like,
I feel like putting a poll on my Instagram and letting the internet decide.
Yeah.
So
we'll put it up on the Twitter. I will put it on the Twitter account now.
So you need a fourth option being like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
And we will let the internet decide. Because that is what we need right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are pretty well evenly matched.
Speaking of the rats, this is something that's kind of been bothering me since I read it, was like the fact that they only occur once in the book and then they never return. I was kind of half expecting a big rat scene at the end or something, but that never happened. I don't know if anyone else thought the same.
I know what you mean, because they were brought in and they were used once and it was a really creepy and like feeling like trope. But I do understand what you mean. You would half expect it at the end. But then at the same time, it's never explained how he could control the rats, whether that took like a lot of energy from him. Because you don't really hear from him huge amounts over the next couple of days after the rats, so you don't really know how much energy it's taken from him.
Yeah.
And as Jess knows, having rats in your house takes forever friggin' ever to get rid of, and is an awful, awful time to clean.
Yeah.
Imagine that
It's
sort of like
awful.
from like a writing standpoint, Grady Hendrix probably didn't want to reuse the rats over and over again. It's like, what could be scary? It's rats, which sort of reminds me of the genre I would put this book under is grown-up pulp fiction. So, you know, like YA pulp fiction, like the Goosebumps, the Christopher Pike, all that. That is where this book sort of originated. It originated from that level upwards, which is, I discovered it through the Teen Creeps podcast, which is all about YA pulp fiction, where this is sort of like those books, but grown up and done better and not rushed out in a weekend. R.L. Stein. What? So those books, it's very much like, oh no, the villain is rats, and every single time there's a jump scare, it's rats.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So it might be just trying to get more in. And also, it could have been like once he controlled the rats, this is my own theory, that the rats then, once that control was gone, the rats left. They were like, we don't want to be a part of this anymore.
Yeah.
When they get like their free will back, they're like, leave, run away.
And like, I remember
Folks.
some of the neighbors saying,
It's live. It is live. We will all put in our votes. You've got 24 hours to put in your votes. I've made my vote.
Okay, I'll do it when
I'm voting for Dracula.
Count, Von, count.
But yeah, I remember like there were some parts where the neighbors were like, "Oh, there's this rat problem." What? And I was like, "Oh, subtle hint, cool." But it kind of surprised me, like how, like, is that the big like sort of first creepy scene? I'm pretty sure
it's the raccoons first.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's raccoon. Then the story about the truth about the peach tree.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's the rats, because Miss Mary is still alive. Rats. And then it's some other stuff. And then there's the bit where it's the bit in the book that also shocked me when I first read it was the jump to 3 years later.
Yes.
It's just sort of like, it's like you're putting all
I
this effort and it's
a year or something. But yeah, I was 3 and I was like, wait, what? Have I missed something?
Yeah. I was just thinking, Nori, didn't you have a question about Carter? Do we want to do that before we finish?
Yeah. Quick question about Carter. Was he always an evil ass? Or did he just become one when James Harris arrived?
Well, no, he got straight from it from the beginning, personally. Like, straight from the beginning, he's never home with his family. He's always putting work first, and it's clear from the beginning he seems to try and solve everything with drugs without actually helping people. So in my opinion, he was an asshole from the start. It just, he had the ability to show it more when he had someone to back him up, which was James.
Yeah. I think he okay. Let me think how to put this. Given the context, you know, if we're back in that time, in that period, or whatever, like, no, maybe not, according to everyone else. However, Patricia is, you know, character growth is happening. So I think it seems more like he's a bad guy in that context because she's more aware and she's like, hang on, wait, why am I letting you talk to me like this? So it's like, I guess obviously for now, like, yeah, we're like, obviously he's a bad guy. Was he always a bad guy? Maybe not intentionally. I think he's kind of like a product of his time. I'm kind of using that.
Love it.
Yeah, but I think because she's more aware, there's a good quote actually. Let me try and find it. But it's something about how like being paranoid isn't a bad thing or something like that. Let me see if I can find it.
I think James Harris allows Patricia to see what an idiot James is.
Yeah.
No, Carter is.
Yeah. The quote I was going to say is on page 196. Apparently, it says, "Who says this? Kitty. If she says she saw him in the back of his van doing something to a young girl, I believe her. I mean, come on. One thing I've learned from all these books, it pays to be paranoid." And I was like, yes. But yeah. So even if she's just very conscious of what's going on around her now. So I think that also plays a part in how he is perceived, basically.
So I was thinking about like, which husband is the worst? Let's do a rank list. Obviously, Horse is at the bottom. He seems like a nice, chill dude. He's just not too sure what he's doing. Then Ed,
he's like he follows the crowd.
Yeah, and Ed, then Leland, and Grace's husband, who I can't remember his name, who is horrible and abusive.
Wait, did you say Ed already?
Ed's the police officer. He's just on the horse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He also seems like a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't know.
Yeah.
And then I think Carter is just the teeniest bit the worst, just because of how he twists everything.
He seems like the kind of person who, like, sure, he's probably very smart, but he's also very arrogant because he knows that he's smart. And he knows that people are going to listen to him. He's got the degree and he's got the good job and he's a psychologist, so he knows all these things about your mind. Ooh. But in reality...
I also absolutely loathe Slick's husband because he's so controlling of her. Yeah, Leyland, yeah. Don't like him. Do not like him at all. He's on par with Carter for me just because he's so controlling. He won't let her join a book club. It has to be a Bible study group. And it's, dude, back the F up.
Grace's like husband for me is one of the worst. Just for the moment where I can't remember if it's after the big sort of like thing where all the husbands come in, but the fact that he smashes her wedding china, which was passed down from her mother and her grandmother and I think her great grandmother, that moment breaks my heart for Grace. It's like Grace is, I think, my favorite character in this, neck and neck with Ursula Green, and then Tristan Slick. Then James Harris is up there as well. But Grace, it's just sort of like, that's, I think in that situation, I might be more like Grace than I am like any of the others. It's just like...
Yeah, I agree, actually.
You want to help, but you feel like you can't, and it's just like, oh...
Yeah.
I just want to hug her.
Wait, I don't even know if someone shared it on the group chat. I can't even remember where I saw it. Maybe it was on Goodreads. I cannot remember. But I saw this interesting article. Maybe it was on Goodreads. I wonder if I can
is that the one that I shared on our little discussion page?
Was he was Grady Hendrix was talking about like race in the book?
Okay. On the discussion,
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting one to read because I did think about that quite a lot when I was reading it. I was kind of like, I get it in the context. He's writing about a white community, like a predominantly white community, but why? Like, why is it so? You know, like some of those thoughts were, occurring when I was reading the book. Like, I still don't really know, like, my thoughts on that, like, whole thing.
And then it was brought up that James was preying on predominantly black kids because in 90s America they were deemed as less than, even that late on in America's history they were still deemed as less than white kids, and it's just heartbreaking to hear that.
Known as the less dead, which that's a term in real world.
And this is why, folks, this is an 18+ read.
It's a very complex book, isn't it? Like if we start talking about the black prejudice in this as well, it's even more horrific because it's so real. And that is, that was quite heartbreaking to read, just about the differences in the communities, like the tin houses and the basics, the trailers and the basketball courts. That's all they had, and the defensive nature of the kids there, because these white women have shown up and why are you here? You're just gonna, this isn't even your place to live now and you're still harassing us here, but that's just their immediate thought. It's not. And I think that I think it's always quite brave for someone to tackle those sorts of themes in a book. And I think it was the representation of Ursula kind of as a representation of that community was quite a strong character, actually, because she broke through the norms and she was so strong. And she actually ended up being kind of a key figure in fixing it all and in coming to a solution. And I thought that was quite powerful, actually, for her to be such a prominent character in all of this, but still hold her own. You know, she doesn't just bow down to the white woman. You know, she's like, I don't like you. You promised you'd do this and you didn't do it. I'm not even surprised, but now you want my help even more. And it's like she still does it because she's a nice person, and it's actually she's fighting for herself as well.
Yeah, and her own children who she had to send away because it's been.
Yeah, I do remember thinking, I don't know, again, I don't really know where all my thoughts on this haven't really developed them. I don't know. But there were times where I was kind of I feel like Patricia has this almost like a white savior complex.
White savior.
Thing. Yeah, because she's like, oh, I have to go and save, I mean, fair enough, it might be a maternal instinct, you could take it that way. But why does she I don't know, maybe that is the take that he was intending, Grady Hendrix, when he was writing it, that she's just another mother. And I do get that point, it does come across quite clearly, and I do think he's done it quite well. But it did occur to me, is this just a white superiority, sort of white savior complex thing going on? She feels like she has to be the good white lady who gets everything sorted. Why her? Is this my old English literature brain kind of kicking into gear again? I'm asking all these big questions and I don't have the answers. I don't know. That's just something that occurred to me maybe once or twice when I read the book. I don't have the answers. I don't really know.
No, it's a good point, because now you're mentioning it, as someone who's studied Black America and Black American history, it does make a lot of sense that you would read it like that, because she does think, well, someone's got to help. It might as well be me. But yeah, she promises stuff and then she doesn't deliver on it, which for someone in Ursula's community, it would have been a time and time again thing of they've been put down by white people in the past, and then they are given this ray of hope in that someone is going to do something, and then she doesn't. She goes back on a promise. I can see where you're coming from with that white superiority thing and white savior. So yeah, it's a really interesting take, but we don't know what was going on in Grady Hendrix's mind. It might have just been an accidental coincidence that he wrote it like that, or that she was just being someone who is motherly to everybody that she comes across. But
this is
the magic of books.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things, and maybe if I read it again, I don't know if I'd have a different take or more thoughts on it. I don't know, but it's just something that was kind of at the back of my mind a little bit. I was like, okay, let's see how this develops. I don't know. But
I think
conclusion. Highly recommend.
I have 3 things that I want to raise. Is that all right?
Go for
it.
One, we've kind of touched on it already, and it's not necessarily a discussion point, but we talked about men writing women. And I have no issue with it, because I think if you stop people writing about the opposite gender or different genders, then you're not going to get anything, because people can write about what they want. However, something that did annoy me was when Patricia goes and finds Slick in the bathroom after what's happened. I think I found it a little uncomfortable. I mean, it's an uncomfortable thing to read, especially as a woman, but or someone identifies as a woman. How detailed he went in about the female anatomy. That made me a little uncomfortable. And I don't know why. I think it's just because part of me was like, I don't think you have the right to start talking about women in that. I don't know, because obviously he does, because it's the truth, and it's not something for someone to be ashamed of. But for me to read about how graphically he was talking about the reaction to the female kind of genitalia after something like that, I don't know, I found it a little bit uncomfortable to read. I was like, for a fact that a man was writing it, I don't know why. I think that was just,
I didn't even think about that, to be honest.
It's not, I mean, I'm not criticizing him in that respect.
No.
He has no right to write that, but I think I just found it a little uncomfortable to read it, knowing that a man had written it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think the way I sort of would take it is I mean, I completely get your point. Like, I just hadn't occurred to me. But I think, in a way, I guess it's, I don't know. Not that you're saying it's a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing necessarily. Like, well, why shy away from that language if that's just, maybe he just researched it a lot. I mean, he probably has a bit of a weird Google history.
Yeah,
but
I think,
I don't know.
I think, like, from what I remember, it was sort of like, because Patricia was saying, it's like, I am / was a nurse. So I think I remember it being like sort of medical instead of like very sort of expressive language.
Yeah, possibly.
I would prefer something a little more like medical than like expressive flowery language. That's why I don't read trashy romance. I don't want expressive flowery language about genitalia. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. That was just something I found a little bit weird to read about. I was like,
I found the bit
about that.
Yeah, I found the bit and everything. So, yeah.
Well, you don't have to go into detail because it's a little bit graphic.
No,
but,
it is very graphic, and
But yeah, that was just something. My second one was Blue and his interests.
Yeah.
What was the point of that? I didn't see. What was the point of having that as an ongoing thing?
I was fully expecting him to turn into a serial killer because he had so many of the traits of a serial killer. He had arson and he had animal abuse, and those are two of the three so-called ways that you can tell a serial killer from a child. The other is bedwetting, but who hasn't? But yeah, he's just so close to being a serial killer, and I really wanted it to go full, like, whole hog.
It was just like, we're just going to have to accept that our son's obsessed with the Nazis. I was like, well, are you not a bit more concerned about that?
I sort of thought of it as like, I mean, obviously, you know, like the book starts at a certain point in like their own family story, you know, their fictional world that's been going on for however many years. I wonder just how much has been going on sort of in their family behind closed doors that we didn't even see as readers. Like, you know, we're talking about how good is Carter as a person? Is he better or is he worse? Whatever. What has he been like for this whole time? So I wonder if, you know, it's just Blues at that age. Maybe there's a lot going on that even we as a reader haven't seen before. Like maybe there's some kind of family thing. Like you can tell that they're not like a perfect family as much as they try to show it. So I just wonder if maybe there's hints of, I don't know, something else.
Could have started with Blue sort of going like, so I'm going to read about Nazis now as a sort of try and cry for attention. Then sometimes things like that, like I love myself a real good true crime documentary. I'm fascinated with true crime, whereas like I was also like that when I was a little bit younger. Like I liked true crime, not so much horror films, but true crime documentaries I was very into. And like it could have started off as like I'm going to read a book about Nazis. Hope I don't like them, but then sort of just getting like obsessed with sort of like how could look at what they do, how, why, what breaks in a human's brain, and then sort of like trying to translate like your own weird, slightly not normal obsession to someone else. You're 95% of the time gonna sound like you want to murder a person.
And I think as well, like basically, saying what you've sort of going on from what you've said, like, I can definitely see it as starting off as just this attention-seeking obsession almost, and then plus everything goes downhill, so it just escalates, maybe.
The fact he's sort of like, as he gets older, he does sort of steer off of the Nazi stuff, and it's like, I'm just going to go play video games and hang out with my friends. He does sort of grow out of it. And also, I think, I don't know but Carter seems like the type of guy to like, oh, my son is interested in something manly, like war. Let's indulge that. Sort of type of thing. It's like, sorry, I didn't make it to your school doobly, what's it? Here's another book about Nazis to make up for it.
I suppose it's interesting. Maybe it's sorry, Janet. Like maybe it's how he kind of expresses his anger, because when he's in the hospital and he snaps at Patricia, he starts ripping the pages out of his book, doesn't he? And maybe like he's living his anger vicariously, or his question, because doesn't Miss Mary scares him as well, doesn't he? Like maybe it's all it's his way of expressing his confused emotions by looking at how someone else did it.
And isn't it ironic that his dad's like, is he a psychiatrist or a psychologist? I'm not sure.
I think
if
he's a
there's
psychiatrist.
One of the two.
No, you think someone that you can go and talk to, but he can't even talk to his own dad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think like from the end of the book, like I imagine that Blue does sort of get better now that he's not having his like he's gonna have like a better relationship with his mum and sort of like in a place where he's not sort of always around his dad, sort of going, and how does that make you feel? That's how I imagine Carter solves every argument. Yeah. And also now that the influence of James Harris is gone, it's sort of like going to be like a weird detox for the sort of whole community where the detox will cause trauma, but it'll be better in the long run.
Yeah.
When Patricia comes home, I think from Slick's place after that bit,
The incident,
and I think I'm right in remembering that Blue he says that he was it on Halloween? Yeah, it was on Halloween.
Yeah.
And Blue says he was at James's because there was like nowhere to go trick-or-treating or something. And then she's like, no, you're lying. Like, you must have been like somewhere else, or he wasn't there because this has happened.
Are you sure he was there the whole time?
Yeah, and I was just kind of like, I mean, I don't know, maybe Blue wasn't lying, but I can visualize him just sitting on the Xbox or whatever, or 90s equivalent.
the NES.
Yeah, like James probably could have left and he probably wouldn't have noticed or something. Like he might not have been lying, or he just was not aware of what was going on around him. Like I don't think he maybe he wasn't paying attention or something, but I just remember sitting there like, something is going on here.
Yeah. Zoe, you had a third thing you wanted to bring up.
Yes, I did, and this is where it's going to be, because I know that everyone really, really enjoyed it, and I'm kind of the sore thumb.
No, go for it.
And I don't mean it in any offence, because it's just taste. I just cannot comprehend the mind of a man who writes a book like this. I just can't get my head around it.
That's fair enough. I agree with you with that. I couldn't come up with anything like what he's written, and although I enjoyed it, I couldn't see it in the brain.
I understand because
read certain things that Nori and I are writing.
Don't read anything I have ever written.
I don't judge people for it, because I know that with the article that we read, he took a lot from the fact that with Miss Mary, it was his grandmother, wasn't it, Grady Hendrix? She had dementia and he couldn't understand her, and I can understand that. That's how you relate it. And I know that he wrote in that article that this was the book he had to run by his family before he sent it off to be published, because I think it's very close to his home. So maybe it's how he's doing it. But I was just reading it and I was just thinking, like children, really? And I just really struggled with understanding why, one, you would write it, and two, you'd publish it.
I think the thing with the children is the thing with the children, in like my opinion, the reason like you put things like that in there is because they are so vulnerable and so innocent, and it's much more impactful. Because I mean, I've done that with my, but not like what he does, but I've included children in like my main story that I'm writing, and the stuff that they go through is incredibly scarring and mentally very taxing. But I think because I'm writing YA as well, it's got to be within a certain age bracket. Like you've got up to the age of 18, and then they're not really main characters in a YA book anymore, which is why I'm YA new adult sort of thing. But you put children in this sort of situation and it is so impactful, and you are bound to get a response out of the reader.
Absolutely.
But I totally get where you're coming from as well.
Yeah. And I just think, I don't know, maybe he's quite interesting to talk to. I'd be like, what happened in your life? Why do you want to write about this? Like, what? And I'm genuinely not criticizing the book or anything. I've just
bring out my trauma suitcase and see. We probably have something similar.
And I don't want to criticize, and I think, like I say, it was a well-written book, and I think it's opened up a lot of discussion. It does explore a lot of complex themes. I mean, great pick for the month, I have to say.
Oh hell yeah!
But I think it's just, a personal. It's just personal for me. I can't enjoy something like that. And I'm not saying it's not criticism to anyone that does, because it's just taste. But I couldn't watch Shaun of the Dead, that kind of thing. I can't do.
Love Shaun of the Dead.
That's kind of I'm not very good with that sort of thing. So I think I just couldn't. I just can't understand. I can't understand it.
Babe, you struggle with Tropic Thunder, so yeah.
So I'm not good with it.
No.
I have a similar feeling, but instead of horror, I'm very much sort of like romance and erotica. I can't get my brain around.
I can't. Yeah, exactly. It's the same.
It's like I'm trying to. I've just downloaded. I think it's Take a Hint, the Chloe Brown.
Yeah, get a live Chloe Brown.
Get a live Chloe Brown. I just downloaded that one to my Kindle, so I'm gonna give romance a try.
It's same with Chloe Brown. Chloe Brown is more cute than erotic. There are a couple of bits that are a little bit sexy, but it's more a cute romance that goes from friends.
But sort of like me thinking about something like 50 Shades of Grey and all of those things. I'm like, what has to go weird in your brain to want to write and put out this sort of thing? Which is why I'm excited for me and Jess to read the books that we got the other day.
The Mills and Boone.
Yeah, we bought some Mills and Boone.
I don't know what that is.
It's just taste, isn't it? So Mariette, did you feel the same in the sense like you enjoyed it, but
I enjoyed the book, but I understand completely where you're coming from. Like, I don't understand. Like you, I think I'd want to interview him and find out where exactly it came from that half the stories came up with, because, like, Jess knows this. I come up with ideas. I just can't put them. I can't put pen to page. It just doesn't work. But I can never, ever in a million years think of something or anything like how he's written there, like the child situations, the rats coming into the house. Like I can't see how those ideas connected in his head that he could come up with something like that.
Well, the rats coming into the house is just our living situation in third year.
But like we had quite a few rats, but the rats in this book, how many of them they were, how detailed he described them climbing onto the toilet or having to leave Miss Mary behind, or the dog almost like I can't see how you would get there in your brain. You go from I know I'll have a horde of rats to like a horde of rats do this, or even the horde of rats in the first place, like coming up the drains and through the walls and all that sort of stuff.
Or even the raccoon. I was like, why are you eating a raccoon? Like, what are you doing?
I agree there. I was like, that was just a bit strange and like.
Yeah, I mean, it was the most bizarre kind of opening to a novel I've ever read. Like, I think I need to reread that raccoon scene because it's not like I've blanked it from my memory, but I'm also like, I remember there's a dead raccoon and there's this crazy old lady in the bin.
It's like it properly grabbed you though, because I read that and I was like, no, I have to finish this book now. Like,
I need closure.
Yeah, definitely.
So in that respect, I suppose he's achieved what he's gone out to do. Like, look at the discussions we've had,
and I mean,
and the reactions.
If this video ever reaches him, Grady Hendrix, we'd like to talk to you about this book.
We'd love to talk to you.
Grady Hendrix, please sign all my books. Please. I think we would get along like a house burning to the ground, then another house next to it also catching on fire due to the way that fire works.
I mean, 4 out of 5 of us really loved this, and we all enjoyed reading it. It was a good experience. So, yeah. And it only came out last year, so there is scope. Anyway, we've been talking for nearly 2 hours.
Yeah, I'm getting tired.
I'm hungry.
So, yeah, I'm going to go soon if we don't end.
Yes. Shall we wrap everything up?
Let's wrap it up.
I guess.
I'm being booped. So, yes, thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Thank you, Nori, for an amazing book club pick. Thank you to everybody for joining in. It's been so nice having all of us here again. Next month is Grace's pick. It is by Emily Elgar. It is Grace is Gone. Don't chuck your keys in your water bowl. Sorry, the rabbit's getting rambunctious. This month we are reading The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, which is Mariette's pick. And then in July, we're going to be reading Loveless, which is my pick, is by Alice Oseman. So those are our next few picks sorted out, then we will have Zoe in August, Janet in September, Nori in October, Marriott in November, and Grace in December. So stay tuned.
I already know what
for all of
October's
that.
going to be.
Amazing.
I apologise, it's more horror.
Stay tuned for all of that. Our poll is up on our Twitter account, so please get voting. You have 24 hours. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. From all of us at the Novel Bunch Book Club, stay safe, and we will see you in the next couple of weeks for our quiz hosted by the lovely Grace. She does exist, I promise. Bye, guys. Stay safe.